just can't do it on the road versus a good football team, and we got to get it fixed because, you know, before you start winning, you got to stop losing. We're doing some things right now that are preventing us from winning.
The most impressive I've seen with the Cleveland Browns offense has been the game Shedeur played against the Panthers, where he had no reps, storing the trash cans, and he came in dropping dime.
In a stunning and almost unprecedented public admission, Cleveland Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski has all but conceded that Dillon Gabriel is not the solution at quarterback, and that he is currently unable to help the team secure victories. In a remarkable shift in his public stance, Stefanski admitted that Gabriel is not performing at a high enough level to effectively execute the offense, and then in the most damning part of his statement, explicitly declared that the team will not be able to minimize its costly turnovers until they bring in Shedeur Sanders. This bombshell admission has only fueled the growing chorus of analysts who have relentlessly pointed out that the Browns' offense looked its absolute best this season when Shedeur Sanders played against the Panthers, a fact that is now leading many to believe that Kevin Stefanski is not just considering but actively planning to start Sanders. And while the exact timing remains unclear, it now appears that this monumental move will happen, and it will happen soon.
In Ireland, Rodgers to throw it, wide open, Washington!
In a surprising display of accountability, Kevin Stefanski did not hold back in his assessment of Dillon Gabriel's performance, but he also placed a significant portion of the blame directly on his own play calling. He openly admitted that his offensive strategies had completely failed to produce the desired results, a failure that had a ripple effect, negatively affecting both the offense and the defense. Stefanski pointed out that the issues were not just on the players, but that they stemmed from a series of poorly executed plays that completely disrupted the natural flow of the game. Clearly frustrated, he confessed that the current offensive scheme simply was not working, a reality that was leaving the entire team struggling to find any semblance of rhythm or momentum. This complete and total lack of execution, he explained, had left them completely and utterly stuck, unable to move forward in any kind of a meaningful way. Kevin Stefanski then went on to acknowledge that Dillon Gabriel was completely unable to execute the team's planned rushing attack, which was a key and foundational element that the team had hoped would be his primary strength. He admitted that Dillon's inability to run the ball effectively was a significant and almost crippling setback for the offense, especially since running was supposed to be his primary asset. Stefanski then also pointed out that Dillon's passing game was equally as lackluster, as he had finished the game with a completion rate that was barely above 50%. It was now abundantly clear that after supporting Dillon Gabriel for so long, Kevin Stefanski's patience was finally and completely wearing thin. His palpable frustration was evident to everyone who was watching, as he now seemed to be finally losing all of his faith in Dillon Gabriel's ability to lead this team as it moves forward.
Got to find a way to score points. Got to run the ball efficiently. Got to find a way to be better in the pass game. All of the above.
In the direct aftermath of Kevin Stefanski's pointed and revealing comments, the buzz has now grown into a deafening roar, with a growing consensus among analysts that Shedeur Sanders is, in fact, the single best option for the Cleveland Browns. Garrett Bush, a well-known and respected Browns analyst, has now boldly stated that Kevin Stefanski is now fully aware of the stark and undeniable contrast between the transcendent talent of Shedeur Sanders and the underperforming Dillon Gabriel. Bush then went even further in his assessment, bluntly describing Dillon Gabriel as a merely average player, while he simultaneously and enthusiastically hailed Shedeur Sanders as a once-in-a-generation talent. The sentiment is now crystal clear. The Cleveland Browns' entire future may now lie with Shedeur Sanders, and many are now completely and utterly convinced that he is the one single missing piece that this team so desperately needs.
It's a difference. You mimicking one, and the other is the creativity behind it. And everybody ain't got it. Some people ain't got that quality, that star quality, where I could hook up in the middle, and some people ain't got that. That's a God-given ability.
And Garrett Bush's assessment holds a tremendous amount of weight, as Dillon Gabriel had just struggled mightily, even against the porous Pittsburgh Steelers defense, a unit that is currently ranked 29th in the entire league. He finished that game with under 200 yards passing. He had no touchdowns, and he likely just added to the city's collective misery with at least one turnover or a sack. And this anemic poor performance has only served to worsen the team's already significant offensive woes, with the Cleveland Browns managing to score a dismal and almost pathetic 9 9 points for the entire game. It was just another frustrating chapter in a long and ever-growing streak of underwhelming offensive efforts, a performance that has now highlighted the growing and very real concern over Dillon Gabriel's ability to lead this team as it moves forward. It was in this context that Garrett Bush then contended that if Shedeur Sanders were to be the one to replace Dillon Gabriel, that even with the team's current struggling offense, he would be able to make something positive happen. And Bush then went on to argue that if that change were to occur, then the entire narrative around the entire league would immediately and dramatically shift to one single topic: how Shedeur Sanders had single-handedly rescued the Cleveland Browns from yet another one of their disappointing and all too familiar seasons. The entire national spotlight would then undoubtedly be focused on his unique and uncanny ability to completely turn the tide, a turn of events that would then offer the entire team a much-needed and a very welcome glimmer of hope, right in the midst of all of their ongoing and seemingly endless struggles.
Look at this and say, Shedeur about to come in here and throw for 300. If he do, they're going to put the Browns on TV every week. Because it would be that impressive. But by the way, the most impressive I've seen with the Cleveland Browns offense has been the game Shedeur played against the Panthers, when he had no reps, storing the trash cans, and he came in dropping dimes.
And Mary Kay Cabot also took to social media with her own incredibly bold statement, now definitively and publicly declaring Shedeur Sanders as the best passer in the game at the moment. She then went even further, directly suggesting that if the Cleveland Browns were to simply give him the opportunity to play, then he would absolutely and completely excel. Cabot then went on to praise Shedeur's incredible throwing accuracy, and she even drew some powerful comparisons to the likes of Josh Allen, but she then also powerfully emphasized that it is his own natural, God-given talent that truly makes him stand out from the rest of the pack, a talent that gives him a clear and an undeniable edge on the football field. And her very public and very pointed remarks have now only served to intensify the already mounting belief that Shedeur Sanders could be the one single spark that the Cleveland Browns so desperately need in order to be able to turn their entire floundering offense around. Mary Kay Cabot also then went on to acknowledge that Dillon Gabriel may not be the player who is capable of carrying this team, and she then emphasized that it is now completely and totally clear that Shedeur Sanders is in fact ready to take over and that he should be given the chance to play. And Cabot has even stated that if the Cleveland Browns were to now question why they should believe that Shedeur is prepared, then the answer to that question is simple. He himself has now declared that he is ready, and she has now urged the entire team to just trust in Shedeur's own personal confidence and in his own personal talent, and she has now stressed that now is the time to let him step in and to let him show the entire world what he can do. And the growing sentiment in that city is now that Shedeur Sanders could be the key to turning their entire and very broken offense around.
I mean, so what is their average now? 17, 16, and 13 points. So they're averaging whatever that is, 14 and a half or something like that points per game.
In conclusion, the entire chaotic situation with the Cleveland Browns has now officially reached a critical and perhaps even irreversible turning point. Kevin Stefanski's very public and very pointed criticism of Dillon Gabriel has just sent a series of powerful shockwaves rippling through the entire fan base, as he has now openly acknowledged that Dillon's own personal struggles are at the very heart of the team's entire and ongoing offensive woes. And despite having supported Dillon Gabriel for a very long time, Kevin Stefanski's own personal admission that Dillon is completely and utterly unable to execute their game plan has now just blown the door wide open for a potential and a much-needed change. The analysts, like Garrett Bush, have all now quickly seized on this brand new opportunity, and they have all now pointed out that the contrast between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders is not just apparent, no, it is glaring. And many of them now believe that Shedeur Sanders, even with the team's current and very real offensive struggles, could bring an entirely new and a much more dynamic element to this entire team. And Mary Kay Cabot has now further fueled this growing and very powerful sentiment by so boldly and so publicly claiming that Shedeur Sanders is in fact the best passer in the game right now. And she has now highlighted Shedeur's own personal accuracy and his own raw talent, and she has now argued that with the right opportunity, he could be the game changer that the Cleveland Browns so desperately need. And Mary Kay Cabot's own personal confidence in Shedeur Sanders has now become a rallying cry for the fans and for the analysts alike, all of whom are now echoing the exact same and the very powerful belief that Shedeur Sanders could be the key to turning the Cleveland Browns' entire and very disappointing season around. The pressure is now mounting on Kevin Stefanski and on the Cleveland Browns' entire front office to finally make a decision, and the lingering question is no longer if Shedeur Sanders will get the chance to play, but when. And if the Cleveland Browns are truly serious about improving their own personal offense and about avoiding another one of their wasted seasons, then they must now take the leap and they must now trust in Shedeur Sanders' own personal potential. Because with his own proven talent, with his own supreme confidence, and with his own uncanny ability to adapt under the pressure, Shedeur Sanders may just be the one single spark that will be able to revitalize the Cleveland Browns' entire offense and to set them on the path to a brand new and a much more successful future. The clock is now ticking, and the Cleveland Browns' entire fate could now rest in the hands of Shedeur Sanders. So what do you think, Browns fans? Do you agree with Kevin Stefanski's own personal assessment of Dillon Gabriel's on-field performance? And do you believe that it is now time for a change at the quarterback position? And can Shedeur Sanders truly be the answer to the Cleveland Browns' own personal and very real offensive struggles? Or are we all just placing too much of our hope on an untested player? And how much of an impact do you think that Shedeur Sanders could have if he were to be given the chance to start, especially given the current and very broken state of the team's offense? And do you think that this is the right move for the team to make? Or should the Cleveland Browns just stick with Dillon Gabriel and just continue to work through all of their issues? We would love to hear your thoughts.